Hey there, Carrie Rhodes here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have a really fun card for you. First of all, I'm going to be showing you a technique on the gel press, and then I'm taking a print from the gel press and using my Glimmer hot foil system on that print to create a unique background for my card. I'm also going to be doing some coloring with the Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. It's just a cool card. Like, I can't wait to show it to you. We are starting today's project with a gel press print. This is my gel press. It's 8.5 by 11. You can see it's really well loved. This is a brand new gel press in the packaging. It's so clear you can see the directions behind it. That's not what mine is. Mine is well loved. I use it all the time. You're going to need a brayer to make the backgrounds and some form of color. I'm using liquid color today, which is dye-based ink from Fun Stamper's Journey. This is the background I'm using on my card. You can see I used 3 colors, blended them together to get a rainbow, but I let somebody borrow the yellow, and so I can't make the rainbow today, but I thought I would just show you how I make these backgrounds on my gel press, even though it won't be the exact one I'm using in the card. The paper I'm using is cheap cardstock from like Walmart. It's not heavyweight. I like to use that on my gel press because when I make prints on my gel press, I just play and I don't want to have to worry about wasting my good cardstock. So the liquid colors I'm using here are Peaches and Cream, Bubblegum, and Lavender Fusion. I'm just making card front size backgrounds today, but you could see you could do a whole sheet of cardstock. So I brayered those out and then I lay down my cardstock and use a scrap piece of paper to rub that so that I don't get my hands all yucky. And then when we peel that off, you can see we have a really cool background. Now gel press backgrounds are not supposed to be perfect. They're supposed to have some unique characteristics to them. So you can see here I used my brayer, it still had ink on it, and rolled that onto my gel press to get a second background. You could do 2 to 4 of these. If you don't want to do more, just roll your brayer off on some scratch paper, and you can see I still had quite a bit of ink. Now that little hole I'm getting is because I was using a damaged brayer, one that my customer had bought that was not exactly perfect, and so I substituted her out with a brand new one, and I've been using that one. So you can wipe off your gel press and clean it up with a baby wipe when you're switching colors. The gel press will have residual ink on it that sometimes you'll pick up with another print, which I think is really cool, but maybe you don't. But a baby wipe does the trick. Now the colors I'm using here are Limeade Splash, Cool Pool, and Lovely Blue. I'm speeding this up a little bit because you just saw me do it, but I thought if 1 is fun, then 2 is more fun. So I'm using my ink again to pick up a second background, and I really love this lighter one. So pretty. And then I thought instead of rolling the excess ink off on a scrap paper, let's roll it off on a background, and now I have 3 backgrounds. So right there, I just made 5 backgrounds. All right, so now for the Glimmer hot foil. I'm using this plate called Scattered Dots. This is all by Spellbinders, and some gold foil. So while my machine is heating up, I'm getting the amount of foil I need. I just lay the plate down onto my foil and then cut that off the roll. And then I am going to go ahead and trim off some of the excess so that I don't have over foiling or foil that sticks where I don't want it to stick. So trimming that down just a little bit so that I don't have that kind of experience. And then it will be just a hair bigger than what we need. So now the green light has come on my Glimmer hot foil system, and I can now lay down my plate. I put a piece of printer paper under there so that I have a guide kind of for laying down my cardstock, my background. I've put the foil onto the plate face down, and I've just taken my rainbow background and put that face down onto the foil. I push the timer button, that's flashing. When it stops flashing, then I know it's ready for me to run through my die machine. Now the Glimmer plates are not dies. They look like dies, but they're not. They're just going to press that foil into your cardstock. So now that everything is heated up, we remove that plate, and you can see it's got a shim and a plate on top of it that are specific for that machine, and you just run it through your die machine like you would as if you were die cutting. I like to run it through slowly forward and back for a good transfer. And then I bring back my hot foil machine and just press that back into place. And then it can reheat if I wanted to use it again. And here comes the big reveal where I peel that foil off and look at the scattered dots on a rainbow. I love it so much. So you just wait for that green light to come back on and then you can do another background. Now this plate is kind of hot, so really nicely you should set it onto this matte, silicone mat that comes with the machine. Now when you're done, turn the machine off, unplug it, and look here on the bottom, a place to coil up your cord so it stores really nice. All right, now on to the stamping. I'm using the Magical Unicorn stamp set and die set by Fun Stamper's Journey. I love the set. I use it all the time. It's versatile. It's got sentiments, dies, all the things. And now I'm going to stamp my unicorn onto a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock with black licorice ink, as well as some hearts from the same stamp set. I'm going to do 6, 1 for each color of the rainbow, and we'll see if I end up using them all. So I'm using Bristol Smooth paper because I'm going to color my images with my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. I wanted the mane of my unicorn to be rainbowed, so for some of the parts I'm going to have 2 colors of markers and I'll blend those out like I am here with the pink and sugar almond pink. So I'm using the lighter color to blend out that darker color. And I'm using Bristol Smooth paper because I find that the marker blends and is easier to spread out on this smooth cardstock than any other that I've tried. I also love using Zig markers on watercolor paper where I would stamp and emboss my image and then use a water brush to blend out the ink. Those are my 2 favorite ways for using the Zig markers. You can see I'm coloring a heart the same way that I colored the mane, and then I'm going to switch to orange. So I'm using the orange marker and then tea rose, which it's almost a peachy color that I'm going to use to blend that out, and it is a really good light shade to go with the orange, even though it might seem like it's not the obvious pick. So I'll blend out the edge of the heart as well so that the center is lighter than the edges. I really wanted to have a little bit softer than just a bold, bright rainbow to go with my gel press background. So here I'm using lemon yellow, and on the mane I didn't blend it out at all because it's such a subtle, I mean it's bright, but then it's not like a rich color. And then I'm just blending it out a little bit on the heart with the blender pen. You can also use the blender to lighten up any dark areas that you might have. And I just decided to try and give a little highlight in the center, but I didn't use it to blend out the yellow on the mane. Now I have pale green that I'll use, and again I'm just using pale green, and then I will blend that out with the blender pen. So when I'm only using one color, I'm doing my blending with that blender. It's my favorite marker from Zig because I can use it with all my other markers to blend them out. And if you're not familiar with Zigs, the other thing you should know is that these are real brush markers. So the tip of them is not a felt tip like a marker, it's a tip like a paintbrush. When you press down on it, the bristles spread out, but it comes to a very fine point, so it's so nice to color in those little tiny areas. I just love these markers. Another marker that I use that's very similar is the Arteza Real Brush markers. You can do the same things with those as well. They're a little bit less expensive than the Zig, so it's a good place to start. And then if you feel all in, the Zigs I feel are just a tiny step up as far as the fine tip of the marker. That's the main difference that I notice in the Artezas and the Zigs. So I used light blue there and blended it out with the blender. Now I'm using lilac, and again I will blend that out with the blender. I'm also going to color in the tail of the unicorn in the same way that I colored the mane and the hearts. I'm going to speed that up really quickly just so that you can see that part. And then I'm also going to color the body of the unicorn, and I'm doing that a little bit different. So I will show you how that works after we get done with this tail. But you can see I'm using the exact markers the exact way as I did on the mane to color out the tail. I started with the pink in the center, and then I spread the rainbow out from either side. So as I move to the left, I go orange, yellow, green, purple. Then on the right of the tail, I go purple, blue. So kind of backwards on the rainbow. And then I have the colors that go together by each other. So that's how I decided that. Now I'm bringing in haze blue and I'm outlining the body of the unicorn. This is a really light blue, and it is great for coloring in glass. And then I'm taking my blender and I'm just softening out those edges so you can't see a marker line. And I really love this look for the body of the unicorn. It just needed a little something. And now it's time to go ahead and die cut out all the things. So I'll run that through my die machine. And I wanted to show you another way to die cut out these little baby hearts that I find is a little bit faster. I have this Prism die machine from Spellbinders, and when you're using smaller plates, you don't have as far to crank it through, so I feel like it goes a lot faster. So that's how I cut out the remaining 5 of these hearts, just moving the die and running it through. And I just love this little machine, so I had to show it to you. I like to have it near my desktop so I can do quick little die cuts like that. And we have all of our elements die cut. Now let's bring in my gel pens. These are the Just Right gels by FSJ. I'm going to use this gold gel pen to color in the unicorn horn and the hooves. Now, my tip for gel pen coloring is to color with a really light hand. If you press hard on a gel pen, that ball that is at the tip of the pen can't roll around as freely, and it really needs that for the ink to flow. Now I'm using some cloud stencils and Piercing Clouds by FSJ. I put them on the machine together so they could die cut and pierce at the same time. And I'm going to use these as the place for my unicorn to stand on in my card. So here you can see I did 3 different sizes of clouds so I could kind of layer them up. And I wanted to show you, if you ever have a piercing die that is hard to get out, you can use the bloom tool. It has a little spatula end you can run between the die and the paper, and it helps it pop out really nice. So now let's figure out where these clouds are going to go on the card. They need to go at the bottom because that unicorn's, tall. So I figured that out, and then I'm going to layer them up, gluing the largest one in the back, and I'm going to put that on with some liquid glue, and then I'm going to bring in the foam squares for the middle-sized cloud and pop that up. So we'll have a raised up layer in the front. And here it comes, my excessive use of foam squares. I really do hold off on videos and try not to put too many on for your sake. So that one's going to go on just like that, and then the smallest one is going to overlap, so it only needs to have a few foam squares on the left hand side. The right hand side where it overlaps, I'm going to put a little bit of glue on that so it can glue down to that other cloud. And then I have a nice dimensional cloud scene for my unicorn to stand on. I'm trying to get a lot of the elements of my card done while I'm letting that gel pen dry on the unicorn. And I have a gold piece of paper that I'm going to mount my background on, but I didn't want to waste the center of the paper, so I used a rectangle die to cut that out. Then I can use that gold paper for something else later on. So now I have just a thin border. My rainbow border is 3 7/8 by 5 1/8, and that gold layer is 5 1/4 by 4. Now I'm going to stamp a sentiment on a 1/4 inch strip. I have a bunch of these strips left over from cutting down cardstock. I like to save them, so when I need a long skinny sentiment strip, I've got them. And I'm going to bring out the stamp set and use the sentiment that says "Believe in yourself." I love it. And then I'm going to ink that up with clear pigment ink and stamp it down on this white paper so that I can heat emboss it with gold, right? We just got to repeat that gold element throughout this card. So I'll bring in the gold powder, I'll sprinkle that on and let the excess be picked up in a coffee filter so I can easily pour that back in later. I'm going to get my heat gun nice and hot. While I wait for it to get hot, I like to tidy up my desk. And then we can heat that powder and it'll melt and get raised up and shiny. I mean, it's one of the oldest stamping techniques around and still one of the most magical. Embossing. I love it. So now I'm going to bring in some scissors and just trim off the tail of that. I don't want it to go all the way across my card. And then I'm going to glue this down right to the card front, and then I'll be able to snip off any excess on that left-hand side with my scissors so that it's flush with the edge of the card. And the shears that I'm using have an anti-stick blade, so if I did get any glue on there and it dried, I could easily just rub it right off. All right, so let's check out this unicorn. I think it's still a little wet, so I'm going to go ahead and bring in some fun foam. It has an adhesive back, but I need to glue the other side. So I'm going to glue it to my card front itself. If I was to flip it over and put the glue side down on my card base, sometimes that glue will leave track lines on the inside of your card. So I flipped it over because my card front already has texture to it and I won't see it there, but fun foam can't really absorb any of the glue, and so that's why I sometimes think you can see the glue lines. So you can see here I'm popping up my unicorn and my secret has been revealed. I did stamp this unicorn one time and I bobbled it and it was blurry, so I had to restamp it, and now you know. That's my secret. I edited that part out, but now you know. So I cut a little foam square in half to put on his unicorn horn and peeled all those off, and then I realized, oh, he's going to be partway on the popped up cloud, partway off. So I peeled off the little foam square on his feet and put a dot of glue there so that he's even on the card and his feet won't be higher up than the rest of him. So there we go. He's popped up on our card. It's so cute. Now we can peel off that adhesive backing paper and crease our card really well before we stick it on there. And then I've got a nice white border all the way around. And my card front layer is nice and sturdy because I have that fun foam in there. I had a little adhesive on my cloud I had to scratch off. All right, let's bring in these cute little hearts. I'm going to put them on my card with glue dots. You'll see I arrange them all on here and then I go ahead and stick them down with glue dots. And then I really wanted to dress them up and give them something a little bit special. So I'm going to put Journey Glaze over the top of the hearts, and that'll help them be raised up and shiny. So you can see here I was deciding, should I use that purple one? Because I like to put my embellishments on in odd numbers, but not today. I feel like, well, I have 3 up in the sky and 3 down on the clouds. So it's odd up at the top and odd at the bottom, right? It works out for today. So here is the Journey Glaze. I'm just going to dot that on and cover each of the hearts. I did find that it lightened up the zig markers a tiny bit, so take note of that. And that's pretty much it for today's card. If you're interested in any of the things I used, they're all linked in the description for you below. And if you're new here, I would love for you to subscribe. I do new videos every week, and I just love sharing my creations with you. So thank you for watching, and happy stamping. Bye!